Hello and welcome to the Drawing Manga Podcast Episode 2 with Yazuki Wolf.
Hello.
I'm NihongoGamer. I'll write my name here, even though you probably already know my name. And you should know Yazuki Wolf's name by now, but
Right somewhere.
If you've learned to write your name by now.
Yeah.
So Yazuki Wolf.
Yep.
And this is the second of 2 drawing podcasts. And today we're going to try and address people's questions about drawing bodies.
Yes. Try to.
Yeah, so I'm going to sum up the whole podcast right now.
Yeah.
Like this. That's the end of the podcast. It's over.
Yes.
It's over.
You have a head, two arms, and legs. Good job.
That's all you need to know. In fact, it's really good if the arms are really long, like longer than the legs.
Yeah. It shows that they have that extra length to them, right?
Yeah. It's, Planet of the Apes style.
Yeah.
So, what have you been up to recently, Yazuki Wolf?
Playing a lot of Skyrim.
Oh, talking of which, have you been following E3?
Yes, and the biggest news for me, which probably isn't really that big of news, is that they're making a new special edition Skyrim that will be coming out basically on my birthday in the end of October, and I get it for free because if you bought the computer version, you get a free upgrade apparently. So that was pretty cool to me.
Wait, what's different about it? It's still Skyrim, so it's the same.
Yeah.
game.
So the thing is, as a PC user, it's really not that big of a deal because it just looks a lot. The graphics look a lot better, basically. So they updated the graphics to be more this generation graphics. The thing is, as a PC gamer, we've already had this generation graphics because we were able to mod Skyrim to beat this generation graphics. Even
I see.
But now, with the new one, now console players, people on Xbox or PlayStation can play the same type of graphics that we had before with the mods, and it's probably more stable than the mods. So it's a more stable version with better graphics. And plus, they're opening a new mod store for console users. So console users will now be able to use mods to enhance their experience the same way PC users have been able to do up till now. So it doesn't really affect my gameplay so much, but it opens up the Skyrim world to more people, which in my book is a cool thing.
Awesome. I feel like we may have opened a can of worms. We'll have to leave.
I have to come back to that another time.
We'll have to leave that for the gaming podcast, which we are planning on doing after this.
Yes.
Definitely anyone who's interested in games as well, do feel free to check that out as well.
Skyrim goblin going on over there.
Yeah, when we get to that. But no, E3 is a big deal, and there's some really gorgeous characters out there, and that's something we were thinking about doing for the future as well. Maybe drawing video game characters.
Yeah, definitely. Something I've been thinking to do for a long time is just take screenshots of my characters in RPGs or MMORPGs or whatever, or even get screenshots from other people, and then try to draw those characters in a portrait or something, just as sort of a personal project of sorts, which would be kind of fun, I think.
Awesome. Well, E3. I mean, I've been following it, but I haven't. We basically haven't made any videos about it yet. But we'll be doing our podcast soon. Apart from that, both you and I, me and Yazuki Wolf, we've both been involved in the Doki. It's such a hard channel name. Doki Drawing.
Yeah,
I keep
wanting to say Doki Doki Panic.
Yeah, it's not Doki Doki Panic, it's Doki Drawing. This is a channel that I'm a part of, and Yazuki Wolf is helping us do a creating manga and selling it.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
TV series, I guess.
Yep.
Creating manga and selling. And
I actually have some more ideas about what I want to do with with that, but maybe I'll save that for later.
Brilliant. No, yeah, absolutely. So I'm just going to draw a little nipple on this guy here because I feel like he deserves nipples. But this is going to be a really interesting series to follow. If you're interested, do check out Doki Drawing on YouTube. Because we will be seeing whether foreigners can draw manga and sell it in Japan. Yep. So that is something to check out as well. But apart from that, drawing. I mean, I've just been thinking about the comic that I'm going to draw for the Doki Drawing project, and haven't had a lot of ideas. But we can talk about that in a separate podcast. Let's move on to drawing bodies.
Yep.
Now I've drawn a little ogre here, and I think I was actually I had sort of Yazuki Wolf style in mind when I drew this.
Yeah.
When I was trying to draw an ogre, and I was like, where have I seen this ogre before? I feel like I may have subconsciously drawn your ogre.
Yeah, it looks a little bit like my my Skype profile pic.
maybe that's why. Right, that explains why I drew it like this. I'm gonna make it green as well. So my first point about drawing bodies is that I would not normally draw it the way I've just drawn it. Right now, I've gone straight in for final lines, and I would not usually do that. I wouldn't jump straight in and draw an ogre. I would usually go in with a pencil and draw a head. In fact, I wouldn't even start with the head. I would start with like proportions, and knowing that the head's going to go here, the pelvis is going to go here, the leg's going to go like that. So what's really interesting is I've started this podcast by doing it completely the opposite to how I would normally do it.
Right.
How would you normally start your body sketches, Yazuki Wolf?
I'd say pretty much the same way. Where I definitely I wouldn't start with the fully pressurized final line. I'd want to kind of have a very soft line at first, and then kind of work your way up. And as you feel more confident, then you can make the lines darker and darker until you get like your final proportions.
Yeah.
I feel like if I start talking about it, I could go on for a long time. But to try to make to say simply that there are a lot of different approaches to how to proportion or how to do those like starting lines. I've seen guides on YouTube where they'll have like you just draw a line and then cut it in half and then cut it in half again and figure out that this is the top part of your body, this is the bottom part of your body, and then kind of go from there. There's so much to cover, so I'm kind of not really going to go into it.
Yeah, this could turn into a very long conversation, but let's talk about it first.
Yes.
Is there a best way to draw the body?
Yeah, that was like what kind of wanted to lead into was that there are so many different ways, but I found that I've never been able to just say like this is the way.
Oh.
I've never been able to be like this is the way I'm going to draw bodies, and then that's how I draw bodies from then on. No, it seems like for me, every body I kind of draw in a different way depending on
interesting.
Like there may be some like a straightforward body where they're standing perfectly straight. You know, you're just gonna maybe you could just draw a line, then cut it in half and do that. And there's no actual three dimensionality to it, so you don't have to worry about anything else. So it's just very cut and dry. But maybe a pose where like the body is like in motion or like moving, and maybe the pelvis is kind of thrust forward toward the camera or something, and you have to actually get like a kind of box shape in there. So then you might have to start drawing some actual like 3D shapes and have like maybe like perspective lines and things like that.
Oh,
like so it depends. It really depends on what the pose is doing for me.
Right. No, that's absolutely true. I can agree as well because I often find that my method, which is basically to draw the topmost point, the bottommost point, figure out where the pelvis is. Sometimes I will go into the drawing and think, okay, I know that I want to have a character that's looking down. And once I know that I'm doing that, I'll like go in and I'll start sketching out a head, which is already looking mostly down. And then now where do I go? Because I've started with the head. Now I have to figure out from here, where are the feet going to be? And so I'm often with these challenges where it's like, hey, once you learn one method, it doesn't apply every time because if you come from a different angle, you're just in trouble. Yeah. So let's talk about what's one method that you might use?
Let's see our method.
Let's say that you were going for the start with light sketches method.
I feel like a good way for me to be able to describe it is I'd have to show a pose and then kind of go through how I would approach that pose, maybe. So this is going to be Pose Maniac, PoseManiacs with the S, .com.
Okay.
And it's a really useful site where you can just kind of check out random poses of different anatomy and kind of practice. You can do 30-second poses, 60-second poses, 3-minute poses, and then I usually do it every morning as kind of a warm-up.
Okay.
Where I do.
That's good. That's really good information telling people that they should practice every day.
Yeah, definitely, because it's like a muscle. If you are drawing for like 5 days in a row, and then you take a month off, and then you try to draw again, you're probably going to be starting back at the 0 point. Those 5 days that you drew, they don't count for anything anymore because you lost that exercise. So
that's so interesting.
Consistent, yeah.
Yeah, I definitely feel that way. I feel like if I stop drawing for a week, I end up like at least a week, sometimes 2 weeks further back from where I was in my progress.
Right.
it's the worst. And I'm so busy. The problem is for people who are hobbyist artists, it's difficult to incorporate drawing into your day every single day if it's not your job.
Yeah, like I don't. I'm kind of blessed in that the work that I go to, they kind of allow me to have that free time in the first like 20 minutes of the day to just kind of do what I need to do to get ready. So I'm able to practice and stuff. But yeah, if you have a job that's not art related, or if you don't really have that like set amount of time where you can just sit down and draw, that could be a little difficult. But I think it's just a matter of discipline of finding where you can fit it into your schedule and then sticking to it.
Yeah. Why don't you don't worry too much about the computer, or are you still just searching for a sketch?
Yeah, I was just gonna see if I can find a pose. But anyways, I won't worry about that for right now. Let me just say, for example, I often try not to start with the head, actually.
That's the opposite of what I've done. I've just started with the head.
I generally only start with the head if it's like a pose that's looking from above. Like if it was a pose that's looking from above, I might kind of draw that. How visible is this pencil anyway, by the way?
I mean, it could be darker. I think people they'll be able to get the gist though. They can see it. Yeah,
I actually wanted to switch to this pencil, but this pencil is very short, as you may be able to see.
That's nice. Why is it short?
Because I've been using it a lot.
Oh, right.
That's where this next amazing thing I want to show people, that this is another one of those items that I kind of like couldn't live without when I was in the manga school.
Oh yeah.
This is like a pencil extender. So you see this pencil here, this blue pencil here.
Yeah.
Hold on a minute.
Maybe you move it to the right so that we can see.
This long.
On the left at the moment. What is that? That's not a pencil.
Yeah, this is the pencil I've been using for my blue sketches.
Quick, move it to the right side of the screen.
All right,
yeah. Now that's in the center.
Yep.
Is that it's I've got a word in mind that I'm not supposed to use online. But, you can probably guess what word I'm about to say.
Yeah,
but it's like that for pencils.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. It's your pencil extender. So I'm gonna use that to extend.
It's not mine, baby. Honest, it's not mine.
Yeah. It's a little bit of false advertising, but it does work.
Brilliant. So
I'm going to use that now to use my black pencil. And people may have been noticing earlier, but I actually sharpened this with a razor blade.
What? You're one of those professional types.
Well, that was another thing I just kind of wanted to bring up, because that's something that I thought was new when I was in school here, is that a lot of the times when I was in school, they taught us not to sharpen your pencil with a pencil sharpener, but to sharpen it with a razor or like a cutter of some sort, because that allows you to make the edge of the lead a lot longer.
I see.
Which then allows you to do kind of like hold it like this. And
sorry, you need to hold it closer to the right of the screen, otherwise it's not showing up. Oh, I can. Yeah, we can kind of see it.
Yeah, so if you hold it like this, then it allows you to do kind of more shading techniques that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise if it was just a regularly sharpened pencil.
And that's something that's nice for people who have got some sort of art education. You can kind of get over things that might have taken, months to find out on your own, or sort of the hard way. And, I don't think there's any shortcut to getting good at art, but certainly there are things that you can learn that will save you time.
Right.
So let me just explain quickly what I'm doing as well, because I'm using a website as well. But it's called reference.sketch. I'm going to write it down, actually.
I don't think I knew this.
Yeah, this is reference.sketchdaily. I'm not even really sure how I found this. I can't even remember. I think I was searching for a different... Oh, sorry, it's not .com, it's .net. I was actually searching for... Oh, sorry, it's not even showing up on the screen. Reference.sketchdaily.net. I actually was looking for a different website. I think there's a different website called, Pixel Lovely. Something like this. And essentially what I do is a bit like you doing a sketch every morning.
Yeah.
I don't do it in the morning because I'm too sleepy. But if possible, every day I try to do some, I don't know, it's called gesture drawing, but I don't think I'm very good at it. So I'm not going to call it gesture drawing, but just figure drawing practice.
Yeah.
And if you go to this website, you can get it to show you a new picture every 30 seconds or every 2 minutes or every 10 minutes. So it's probably very similar to the site that you're using. But, it's good to have as many of these resources as possible because each site has a limited number of photos. And so if you can get as many of these websites as possible, you'll have hundreds and hundreds of photos to practice with.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And I think something that people are probably going to ask is if we practice with all of these photos of Western people, predominantly Westerners, then is it going to be different from when you come to drawing Japanese characters?
Slightly.
Yeah?
I don't think it's as different as you might expect. I think most of the difference comes into the head, but there are some slight differences. The thing I was going to say a little earlier about not really starting with the head, is that I would start with the head from over top view, but otherwise I generally try to start with the body more so.
Oh yeah.
And this kind of goes to Proko's videos where he talks about the bean. Are you familiar with the bean?
I have heard of the bean, and I remember doing some practice exercises from it, but I don't use it as much as I thought I would. Go on, talk about it. Draw us a bean. Oh, you're drawing a bean now.
So it's basically just drawing a torso as a bean. So this would be like their general torso, and then after you have that, then you can put the head in there. And
I feel like I'm literally getting a lesson from Yazuki Wolf right now.
Well, this is definitely not particularly
like student and teacher.
But yeah, so then we have our head after that. And so I was practicing with these for a while, but then I noticed that the Japanese proportions, especially for women, generally don't really fit this bean that well.
Oh.
Because when you use a bean for a Japanese anime character, it ends up looking a lot bulkier and like heavier than probably most of the actual characters.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it kind of gives a lot of equal prominence to the upper torso, where with anime characters, I feel like they kind of smallerize. I mean, of course you can't generalize with all manga. There are plenty of manga that have very realistic proportions.
Yeah.
But in plenty of manga, you do see a lot more of this smaller at the top and larger at the bottom size, which is not actually that common in real life.
Right.
Especially with these having the shoulders come in here. Like normally you wouldn't have shoulders that really come in so far inside the waist.
Yeah. But
certainly in manga you see it all the time.
Yeah, definitely the shoulders are always a lot skinnier than they would be in real life. Like generally I don't think most people's skeletons would even allow them to be as skinny as they do. But yeah, so instead of the bean per se, it's more like, I don't know what would you call it, but it's more like, yeah, like you were saying, where it has the very skinny top and then like a thicker, wider bottom.
Oh yeah. It's kind of, I don't know if the word is oblong shape, but definitely see that a lot. And sometimes you see the opposite as well. Like for example, if you have a character like I'm putting on camera now, if you have something like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure type art, you have it completely the opposite, where you have the shoulders as broad as physically possible,
right?
And then you have these waistlines, which just where would the food? It's like the food goes in, and then it must get stuck somewhere around here, like this, because they can't surely process that food and digest it.
It's not going to go anywhere.
But this can look, this can be a great character design as well, having something kind of hulking and massive at the top and smaller at the waist.
And that's why I'd say that it's not necessarily that it's not realistic. It's just that it's they exaggerate certain areas in order to give that character their kind of like particular flair.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it's no different than what we do in the West. Actually, if you look at like Pixar films or Disney films, they aren't exactly proportional for real proportions. Absolutely
not. So let's go back over what we've just talked about. So this method, which we could actually put a link to Proko's video, because it is really, really good. And by making this podcast, we're not at all trying to replace any of the materials that are on the internet. There are some really great tutorials already online, but there's just plenty you can learn from watching other people draw as well.
Yeah, I think for the most part, I'm just trying to add sort of the things that I know I can add to the community because of things that I've learned, particularly with the experience of living in Japan.
Yeah.
There are so many other like kind of resources out there to help with other things that I wouldn't be as good. I couldn't really add anything to the discussion. So at that point, I would just feel comfortable just saying, "Link, look at Proko's videos."
Yeah, sure. So I'm actually noticing right now how useful this bean really is, especially if you're trying to come up with a great pose.
Right.
Because if you know for sure that you want to have the top of the body, I've done this before actually in a previous video. You have the top of the body up and the top of and the bottom of the body like this. You can have a really nice arc like this. And you wouldn't really be able to do that if you worried too much about proportion. Like, again, I always start with the top and the bottom. If you do that first, then you force yourself to always draw really straight characters. But if you do the pose first, sometimes you can get into poses that you wouldn't have drawn otherwise.
Right.
Giving someone, I don't know, maybe they're doing ballet. Something like that. Who knows? Doing some sort of ballet pose.
Yeah, I think sometimes I do just draw a face, like I'm just drawing a head, right? And I'll be making a really cool face, and then after I'm done with it, I'm like, oh, this looks like a really cool character. Then I decide to add a body to that face, but it seems to always look awkward because the face is already set up, and then I try to get the body to fix to it. But unless it's just like a really straight body, if it's something like kind of more dynamic, it never seems to fit the face. It feels like the face has been like pasted onto like a different body. So that's kind of where I felt like it was easier to do the body first. So that
that's really interesting.
More like a natural thing.
I mean, I think that must be the opposite to what a lot of other people feel, though, because when I started, I would always draw the face first, and I would always move on to draw the body after that, and then the problem would be I would get to, let's say that the person was Sailor Moon or something, they've got a skirt down here, and then I would have their legs coming off the screen, and it's like, oh, well, how do I fix this? And the only way to fix it is to know where the bottom of the art is going to be before you start drawing it. So absolutely, you can run into issues, and this is why digital art is so nice. With Clip Studio Paint or Photoshop, you could use your selection tool, shrink it into the correct size, move it in. And there's only one reason why I don't really do that anymore, actually, and that's because I put too much detail into the pictures. Does this ever happen to you where you draw a picture, quite large, and then you realize you don't want it to be like, like a head? I'm just doing this very quickly. You don't want the head to be like this in the shot. You want it to be more like this with the whole body,
right?
For example, like this. And in the old days when I first started drawing, I would actually select this art and shrink it down into this window over here, and I would end up with a face that was really, really detailed. Right. And it's a face that you couldn't really draw if you had a G pen and a piece of paper.
So, why is that a bad thing for it to be super detailed?
So I think the problem is when I look at plenty of manga, drawn by professionals. Here's a typical page of manga. So I've drawn it in red for no reason, and let's say that there's panel 1, panel 2, and panel 3. You'll see like this panel will be in really great detail. In fact, usually I always find like there's one panel on the whole page that has really great detail, and the rest don't have a lot of detail. And sometimes you'll have characters like this where they don't have a face at all.
Oh yeah.
They're just like standing, walking, chatting, or sometimes they do this with the face. They just have shadow going over the eyes. And that's really, really effective because you don't want to. I feel like personally, I don't want to draw the reader's attention too much into a detailed picture here when I've got like an impact shot coming up later.
Right.
And I feel like that's a big difference with Western art. I feel like with a lot of Western comics, they have really detailed pictures for each and every frame. Do you ever find that?
I may not have looked at enough Western comics lately to compare.
I'm often on the Marvel app and the DC app.
Oh yeah.
And you see some absolutely gorgeous work. The artists are talented. There's no doubt about that.
Right.
But even in a picture like this, there'll sometimes be about 6 different characters. And if you zoom in, you'll be able to see like proper detail on each and every one. And that's something that I feel like never really happens in manga. The smaller it is, the less detailed it gets.
Right. And I think that would make sense because you want to spend more time and effort in the area where the reader's going to actually look at the most, right?
Right, yeah, especially if you want to do it on purpose, like you really want them to look at this, please. This is the surprise scene.
The only reason I could guess for that is maybe because in Western comics, there's generally a separate artist there's a separate artist and writer. So like the artist maybe has more time to devote to drawing it.
That's so true. Yeah, I hadn't really thought about that, but that's true. Maybe when they've got not the time, I'm sure that everyone's always short for time.
Yeah.
But you're right. Maybe they may get carried away with each and every shot, not 100% having the same idea as maybe what the writer had.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So let me just quickly demonstrate how I would draw a character body proportion-wise.
Yep.
Because I feel like drawing a character body is not as big a problem as getting the proportions right is.
Yeah.
And this is literally the simple way I do it. I draw a line at the top,
Yep.
a line at the bottom, and I kind of eyeball it to find a line in the middle. And if I'm doing a character that's particularly cute or Sailor Moony, I'll try and put the pelvis right there in the middle.
Okay.
And I'll actually just draw a line for the pelvis here. And then from that point on, I can decide if it's like a 6-head body. And again, this might be running a bit too fast for people who've never heard of this before.
Yeah.
But you can measure the body by the number of head lengths, right?
Yep, they're like, a 6-headed body? What is he talking about?
Oh my god, I don't actually mean with 6 heads, I mean 6 heads tall. And that way I know how tall I know how big the head is supposed to be, I know where the pelvis is, and I can pretty much guess where the kneecaps are going to be. And then from then on, it's kind of paint by numbers. You kind of know how long each appendage is supposed to be. You can pretty much guess what the shapes are going to be after you practice a lot. So that's one way that I would do it. And I think, for version B, I would say, okay, let's say I want to have a slightly more realistic character. I'd probably put the pelvis just below the halfway line.
Yeah.
Because I find that in general, in human bodies, you have this length is equal, this length is pretty much equal, and the head is a separate part above that.
Right, yeah.
So with anime, it's like 2 equal parts, and with realistic, I see like, it's disappeared. I see like head, and then part 1 and part 2 are equal in length.
Yeah, I think having the end of the legs be right at the middle is sort of like the supermodel proportion, right?
Oh, that's right, yeah. I mean, there must be humans with those proportions as well.
Yeah, but I think it is rare, and the reason why they usually use those proportions for comic book characters or for beautiful women and things in manga and so forth is because that kind of stresses that point of them being like a supermodel or superhero. It kind of gives them that very like
out of the ordinary.
Right.
Yeah, that must be absolutely true. And I don't know, it really depends on what kind of story you're drawing. I feel like if you're doing a very if you're doing a slice of life type thing, it can actually be like really, really cute to have characters with really short, stocky legs.
Yeah, definitely.
And I feel like my eyes were really opened up to that when I was teaching at school, because I would see kids, at their desks doodling. And for some reason, and I think I talked about this before, whenever kids in school draw anime themselves, they seem to really put themselves into the anime, like with these short, stocky legs.
Yeah.
Because they know that in real life, that's what they look like.
Right. Yeah.
So it must make them feel a little more part of the comic that they've drawn if their characters are a little more... It's a bit more like K-On! I feel like K-On! Has very realistic human school, high schooler proportions.
Yeah, I think that's probably what you're talking about. The kind of depending on the tone of your comic, you may want like that superhero, look very strong, out of this world proportions, or maybe you just want like a realistic, like this is a slice of life type of proportions.
Absolutely. So where are you getting your sketches from at the moment that you're drawing?
Pose Maniacs.
Okay.
And I just realized while I'm drawing that I was trying to think of some advice to say for how to start your drawing. So I said that I usually wouldn't start with the head, but I actually started with the head with the last 3 drawings I drew. So
that's interesting.
Yep.
Though I think it's different when I'm trying to create a picture from scratch.
Yep.
Like, let's say again, I've chosen the top and I've chosen the bottom. I mean, vaguely. I find it very difficult to start with the head.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like you say, like one of the most dynamic places for the pose, I think, is right here. What do you call this part? The waist.
Yeah, waist. Yeah.
You know, where because the body can bend quite dynamically here, not
right.
above, but right here down below.
Yeah.
So if I start with the head, I lock myself a little bit too much in a position.
Right.
But when I'm doing gesture drawing, so this is for, I would say start. This is not a rule.
Yep.
I start with most important part of pose, right?
Yeah.
But then for gesture drawing, it's different. for gesture practice, I almost always start with the head.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't start with the head, I don't know where everything's going to be.
And I think that actually might probably explain what I was trying to go for, but then I realized that I was actually starting with the head when I was drawing now, is that most people probably think that there's your final lines, right? And then you have like your outlines that you start before that, right?
Yeah.
But before that, there's a gesture phase too.
Right.
And I think that's probably why I started with the head for the gesture. Like, can you see this head, this one here that I'm drawing here?
It's quite small and faint, but
yeah, make it bigger. Like, I'm sorry, I'm kind of used to like drawing a bunch of bodies in the same piece.
No, it's good. It's good.
So I'm not used to actually drawing it very big, but then
it's good for everyone. I think it's good for people watching as well. They can see how your art is progressing from the drawings you drew earlier.
Right.
To the ones you're drawing now. It's good.
And this is another I just keep going off topic, but another just simple thing is that if you draw your first sketch and you're like, oh, this looks horrible, which is what I was thinking the whole time I was drawing this.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. Like, just draw another one. Just skip to the next one. Going and I go through it every morning. The first 2 or 3 that I draw, they look crappy, but then by the end of like that 15-minute session, I finally have like these really nice bodies that I'm like, okay, I'm going to keep this so that if I ever want to do a sketch in the future, I could like reference this or like copy and paste it or whatever and use it, because I did like six bodies, but and out of those I have 2 or 3 that are really nice, so
that is so true. That's so interesting that you say that, because I studied music at university, and something I didn't think about until I had a professor that told me was that whenever you write bad music, just save it. Save it and put it in a folder, because you never know when some director is going to want exactly that terrible piece of music.
Right. This is
so true. There's always someone who wants the worst piece of music you've ever written.
Yeah.
So don't throw anything away.
Or maybe it was really bad, but maybe how you say, maybe 60% of it was actually really good, but that remaining like 40% just messed it up. And
yeah.
Another day you could go back to it and be like, yeah, this doesn't look good altogether, but if I just fix this 40%, oh, there you go. This works.
Yeah. Absolutely. You may have got like a great pose, like you may have got the gesture right, but then you may have just got the details horrendously wrong, or the proportions, or the muscles, or who knows, the face, everything. There's so much you can do to ruin your own art.
Yeah. And you probably won't even notice it until you look at it again like later, because when you're in the kind of element of drawing those lines, there's just so much that you can kind of miss, because you're in that kind of tunnel vision. But in a way, just go back real quick to the gesture thing.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So like what I notice is what I tend to do is especially this is a pose from behind the character. Yeah. So I tend to start with a quick just circle for the head, and I draw that with the understanding that I'm going to go back and fix that later. It's just sort of like a reference. This is where his head is, right?
Okay.
And then I often go to the spine, because I find like the spine kind of gives you the majority of the motion that's going on in the pose.
Okay.
So I'm trying to draw this a little bit darker than usual, just so it shows up on the camera. But then, so now I have the spine coming down here, right?
Yeah.
And then I draw the spine down into the butt.
Right.
And so this is something that I think for a long time I kind of avoided drawing butts, because I don't know why, it just seemed weird. Especially this is a male character, so I'm like, I don't want to stare at this guy's butt.
Ah, right.
But the butt is so amazing for helping you draw the rest of like the legs and everything. Because see, look, I have this nice little V going on here where the butt crack is, right?
Oh, stop right there.
No, I'm telling you, it's great.
The butt is amazing. Oh
Yes.
God, we've got the quote for this whole podcast. We can end it now.
That should be the title.
That was the best.
Actually, this might be a little
climax of the podcast. Oh my God.
early, but here we go. Up here. There we go.
Keep going. This is.
But so now that I have this kind of like these butt cheeks here, that kind of gives me an idea of how the actual like what you call it, the structure of this whole like pelvic, what is this area called underneath the waist?
Oh yeah, it's the pelvis.
Yeah. Oh, okay. It gives me an idea about this whole pelvic area, like the actual 3-dimensional structure of what's going on here. Like, can you see how I almost have like a box kind of going on here now?
Yeah, if you move it a little bit further up. Yeah.
All right. So now what's going on here, and then this kind of lead me into, okay, now I have this leg that's kind of pushing up against the butt here. So this gives me the kind of circle the cylinder for this the part.
So by going with the gesture at the beginning and then adding the box after, then you kind of give yourself, it like becomes 3D for you.
Right.
And so you're like, in a way, drawing guidelines for yourself.
Yep.
So that to help you place objects. That's really, really interesting because I think that'll help people a lot when they're trying to figure out how do I really bring these characters to life.
Yeah.
And certainly giving them depth. Something that I think a lot of people don't realize is that even though anime has a very super flat, who is it? Murakami, who had the super flat manifesto, right? Like it's very Japanese to have flat art,
right? But
that doesn't mean that your characters should have no depth,
right?
And
so you want to have some kind of action dynamic feel to it.
Right. There's no motion without it.
That's the word I was looking for.
No, I think they're both correct. And what's interesting, while you were drawing your character, as soon as you added the box, I realized that your drawing is from a top view. Right. Mine, I'm kind of, I don't really know what view mine is. Mine is kind of either my eye level is kind of at the waist.
Yep.
Or maybe just a little higher, maybe. Yeah, I think I might be looking a bit from. I'm not really sure. Anyway.
And going back to the not starting with the head thing, even though I started with the head, I did start with a circle to show me where the head was, but then after I had actually gotten back and got that 3-dimensional structure, then I come back and I actually redrew the head because it wasn't the right size.
Yeah, me too. I've just noticed, just as you've advised, I drew it with very light lines, and I've noticed that my head, it doesn't come up high enough until later. So this is great information for anyone who thought that you can get the body right the first time.
Yeah. Nope.
You know, like it really, really helps to keep your lines light until you know where the lines need to be final.
Yep. Don't know what's going on with his arm here, but that's okay.
It's so true though, isn't it? I think for a lot of people who start drawing anime because they're attracted to anime boys or anime girls,
right?
At the point when they have to draw the other gender, it must feel very strange because you're not drawing something that matches your I don't know, sexual orientation, if that if that even comes into it. But certainly, I remember reading. I think on YouTube I watched a documentary about manga artists who were like drawing sort of erotic manga art.
Yep.
And the guys were drawing it, and they're like, I kind of get excited while I'm drawing.
Oh yeah.
I can, once you start drawing, you can start to understand. Like, it's quite difficult to draw a character for me. Mm-hmm. When you get to the chest region, it's a bit difficult to draw this area without, thinking about it.
Yeah, like I used to have live.
I'm very conscious of what I'm doing. I'm drawing a chest.
I used to have live drawing sessions where you have a live model.
Oh wow, yeah.
And I remember that I never drew nipples. I would draw the shapes of the breasts and everything, but I just went and add nipples. And I don't know if that was just sort of my way to kind of separate it mentally, that this is not a erotic, this is not that type of thing. This is just me drawing for practice.
Yeah. That's so interesting because in a way, what's happening there psychologically? It's almost like you're trying to protect their shame.
Yeah.
Because there's our culture is that no one shows up naked in public because of the shame that you would feel.
Yeah.
And so in a way, if someone just shows up naked for a drawing class for you, you try to protect their dignity.
Right.
By not. In fact, I can't even bring myself to draw nipples on here now. But then again, maybe that's because we're going to broadcast this on YouTube. I don't actually know what the rules are. Are there rules on that? Like, can you?
I'm not sure. Like,
Proco does it all the time, right?
I think Proco.
If he does it, it's okay.
He puts a black bar over them, doesn't he? I think.
Oh yeah, he does.
Yeah, so there must be a rule against it. Yeah.
Oh, so wait, does he put black bars on the drawings as well?
I think he puts it on the actual model. The drawing, I don't think he does, but I don't know if he draws nipples on them. So maybe as long as there's not nipples, maybe it's okay.
Very interesting.
That's like this. When you really think about it, it's kind of silly, and it kind of goes back to me about this whole butt thing. Is like I used to kind of like feel like weird about it, but then it's like, well, you know, that's what I'm doing. I'm drawing a figure, and that's
right.
That's part of it, you know. And you just learn. I guess you get over it. But there was that initial phase where you're kind of used to someone like being over your shoulder, looking at what you're drawing, and you kind of feel their kind of judgmental view.
Yeah.
Drawing there, you know.
So here's another thing. I have these videos reviewing iPads on NihongoGamer, and I sometimes talk about the fact that I don't want people staring at my drawing too much while I'm drawing it, because the truth is, I often start with these wireframes, and I'll put the clothing on later.
Yep.
And if you do it like that, then you run into this situation where before you're finished, people think you're drawing naked people.
Right.
Like, what? No, that was never my intention. I literally, if I don't do this, how do I know where the creases of the jacket are gonna fall?
Right.
This is really important for the character design. But anyone who sees you before you finish at this point is going to think you're just sitting on a train drawing naked people.
Yeah, which isn't really that bad of a thing, you know.
Well, maybe in Japan it's not so bad a thing. Like you've seen that scene from Lost in Translation.
Yeah.
When I saw Lost in Translation, I'd never been to Japan, and you just see what's her name? The girl in that.
I honestly don't remember.
Jo. She's in Marvel. She's in the Avengers now. Oh, what's her name?
Is it Jodie Foster?
No, the girl with the pearl earring. Oh, what's her name?
Girl with the pearl earring.
Scarlett Johansson.
Oh, there you go, Scarlett Johansson. Yeah, there you go.
And she sees that guy reading erotic manga on the train.
I've experienced that in real life before. That is a little weird, I have to say. You see, like,
I don't know if I have the guts.
You're like on the train, just sitting next to a guy who's like opening up to that. You're like,
Yeah, and honestly, like having lived in Japan for like a number of years now, I haven't seen it. I don't actually think I've seen anyone actually do that. It sounds like you have, but...
Oh, yeah, I've seen it maybe 2 or 3 times in the 10 or 12 years I've been here. So
right, okay, so it's not like every day. It's not like every day.
Nah.
And so here's something interesting. I'm actually erasing lines that I drew earlier.
Yeah.
So a lot of people who, if you draw too... I mean, this is digital, so it's no problem. But if you had really, really heavy lines for just structural things like the chest...
Yeah.
Erasing those lines later when you put clothing on is going to be extra difficult.
Right.
So that's something to consider as well when you're drawing the body. So there we go. I think other things that people wanted to talk about are drawing the muscles. Drawing the muscles and drawing the eyes. And I think that's great. I think that's great that everyone's asking those questions, but I think it's obviously not something we can cover in a single podcast.
Yeah, definitely.
Even like what I'm adding here, like these shoulder bones, like... There is a lot that goes into knowing where the bones are going to be. So that will have to go into a separate video. But I think what's really helped is, Wolf, you've mentioned using the bean.
Yep.
I think that is really, really useful for anyone who's having trouble creating dynamic poses. Because you can just add 2 circles together, and instantly you already have a very good starting point for how the body should. Yeah,
he mentions how you could just kind of practice doing that. And this is another thing I did because of that video that Proco made is, so right now I'm actually using a site, Pose Maniacs, right? But sometimes when I just have free time, I'll just draw a bunch of beans just by themselves, right? And this is something that Proco mentioned. And then after I've drawn a bunch of beans, then I'll kind of go in afterwards and try to add the rest of the body to those beans. And it's an extra challenge because now I have to make the body contort in such a way that it doesn't interfere. They don't cross over each other, right?
That's
so
a
it's
really
like a whole different exercise in itself.
Yeah, it's a good challenge, and then you may find that you learn a bit about proportion as well. You'll feel like, next time I draw a bean, I should draw it with a larger bean at the top and a smaller bean at the bottom, or vice versa.
Yep.
And it just comes with experience, I guess, doesn't it?
Yep. And that kind of goes back into the whole thing about there not being one approach to it, because maybe if the person's just standing straight, just a bean like this one up here. Can we see like where it's just pretty much straightforward?
Oh yeah, right.
That's fine. But if it was something like let's see, like this girl here, if you were drawing her bean, you'd have to have like a bean on, like at the circle on top, and then the bottom is going to be actually coming out into 3D space. So
right.
now I have a bean that's something like
bean that's foreshortened.
Yeah. And so you'll find that depending on the pose, you might need new things to kind of help describe that kind of shape in space.
Yeah, I mean, technically, you could even have a bean that looks like one circle here, and then if you've got a very flexible person, they could overlap like this so that the complete shape looks a bit like this.
Right.
And if you don't draw them as two separate circles, you'd never really know. How you'd put that together. I think the bean is a really, really good exercise for anyone who's just starting and doesn't want to worry about proportion. I would suggest that after you move on from the bean, in fact, you never really move on from the bean. It's always going to be a useful tool. But then, then you can really think about just starting with the gesture as well, which is really useful. Here's an exercise that I started doing recently. I don't know if I saw this somewhere or if I came up with it. Drawing random lines. Draw a C line or an S line. And then just trying to turn that into a pose. So, for example, I've got this weird sort of MS shape here. And then I would try to turn that into a pose. So, hold on. I've got the previous head in the way now. But I would try and put a head here and find an intelligent place for it to attach the neck. And then have the body come like this. Like, how could I possibly have a bean that would get this in the right shape? And it turns out that his body has to be sort of facing down and away from me. And then linking into this bean here. Like so. And then because this line is coming out here, how can I get his legs to bend? Well, I can't get his, unless I want to really extend his thigh. I can't do it perfectly. But I can get close, right? I can have this leg extending out like so. And then maybe kind of cheat and just have it. Or maybe, hold on. And so, you come up with these, you give yourself these challenges.
It gives you new solutions. How to his body fit this.
Let's say that I've got his leg coming out like so. Maybe I can have his foot add to the gesture like that.
Right.
And so I've not.
You can have like maybe one foot go straight down, but then the foot in the background kind of shoots out a little bit to fit the line or something.
In which direction?
Oh, I was just saying, like, so you could have like just one, maybe one leg is going more straight like this, but then the second leg is
absolutely
sticking out here or something.
Right.
Like foot is over here.
Oh, I see. Yeah. That's another way. So something that's nice if you've got an iPad or if you've just got a couple coloring pads is to do it in two different. I sometimes do the two different legs in different colors. But you're right. I could have had one leg come more like this, and then have the hold on, my color's gone. Have the left leg come up a bit more like that.
Like maybe like
that's absolutely true because I've only drawn one S, but he does have two legs.
Right.
There's probably at least 10,000 ways to interpret this one drawing.
And so each time you draw one of those random lines, it gives you a new challenge to kind of figure out.
Absolutely, and it's been really, really fun. Like if you just draw something ridiculous like this upside down U, and just force yourself to draw a person in this shape, it's like, how on earth am I going to turn this into a gesture? And you can be a little more flexible. Like the head doesn't have to go here. The head. You could draw the head last, really. But maybe you could have something more like... this is a tough one. But let's say that the rear end, for lack of a better term...
The butt.
Yeah, goes like this. So just draw a body which is kind of bending outward like this. Leg coming out that way, another leg coming out that way. And you can have the head here, but have their arm come out to complete the rest of the
Oh yeah.
And you just really do put your mind in a place where you wouldn't have been otherwise. You wouldn't have thought of it originally.
Yep.
And it's good fun as well. Just get a pencil and just draw random lines.
Yeah, definitely.
Any other tips for drawing the body?
Just to add on to what you were saying with the C's and S's, right? I find like probably shapes you want to remember is a C, S, I, and maybe V.
I can't remember the V.
I'm not sure if this is from Proco or just as me. I don't know, but I had a V here with the butt.
Oh right, yeah.
And even without that, say this what do you call it? Bean. I'll make this bigger down here so you can see. So maybe I have a bean something like this, right? Where maybe it's a person who's kind of like doing a leaning pose. You could describe this with a kind of C shape on this side with the inverse of it on this side, right?
So can you move it a bit further up a bit?
Okay.
Good, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So you've got the C on the left and the
kind of like a
it's like a dove. It's like a dove shape.
Yeah. So it's a V sideways, right?
Yeah.
I think Proco calls it stretching and crunching, basically.
Oh yeah.
So the concept of stretching and crunching is really important, and I think anyone who's going to try the bean exercise, if they check out Proco's video, they'll hear everything they need to know about it. But just to understand that when one side of the body is stretching, the other side is going to crunch.
That is amazing. And you know what? That moves really well.
Yep.
From body. Hold on a second.
Yep.
From body to stretching, and crunching.
Yep.
That moves really well to the next topic, which could be muscles.
All right.
And I don't really want to try and teach muscles because I don't feel like I'm an expert at it.
Yeah.
But with muscles, it's exactly the same thing. All muscles work in pairs.
Mm-hmm. And
for example, if you've got an arm, like this is the hand.
Yep.
This is the upper arm and this is the lower arm.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's muscles on the back here. And it works with muscles on the front here to pull the arm up. And then similarly, you have other muscles on the opposite sides, and they work in pairs, and they always do opposite things to each other.
Right. So
like the muscle here will do the opposite thing to the muscle here.
Yeah.
And it's all about the arm. You know, if the arm were to change to move in this formation, this muscle is working. You know, is I don't know if the word is stretching. What is the word when it
contracts?
Contracting, yeah.
Yep.
So you have the muscle contracting on one side, but then relaxing on the other. Super important.
And that's the same thing with like a leg, where if a leg moves, if you have a curve going this way on one side of the leg, going up to like a knee here, the other side is going to curve the opposite direction, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know how much of like a leg this.
No, it looks a lot like that is a really good demonstration. I think. Yeah. I think people don't realize it because they don't see it very often. But when the body, you know, if this is the pelvis here and this is a person's pants, the leg doesn't go straight down, really, does it?
No.
It really does have this front motion thing and then this back motion thing.
Yeah.
And that's because of these strong muscles here, and here.
Yep, is where one muscle pulls, the other muscle contracts, so it kind of gives that flow of motion to everything.
Right. Yeah. Anyway, I think that's a good place to end it. I'll just quickly before we complete, just check if there's anything fun on the previous videos we can reply to.
All right.
Comments. Is there a manga school for total beginners?
Total beginners. I mean, imagine any manga school is going to start from a fairly beginner level.
Did you find that other people joining the manga school when you went were they mostly beginners?
It's sort of like a bell curve mix. You have really, really good people, you have a lot of average people, and you have a few really not really completely like beginner people. Great. Yeah. Beginners and average. Cool. Actually, I think the great. Do you have the great in the middle there?
Oh yeah, was that wrong?
Yeah, the middle of the average. Yeah, the great would be the.
It should be average. Oh, sorry, yeah.
And I'm so jealous of your smooth drawing and erasing ability over there with the iPad Pro.
Sorry, I got carried away.
No problem.
Here's another question. Someone said, "What app do you use for drawing on the iPad?" I'm using Apple Notes, which I know a lot of people think is ridiculous, but it's just so easy to open a new canvas, especially for these podcasts. The pencil, honestly, a lot of apps have been updating, but they still aren't as good as this one. Apple Notes really is the best. Cool. Let's see if there are any other. Let's just give it one more. There was the person who said something about eyes and musculature, so we'll definitely, we can try and talk a little bit about it in the future.
Yep.
Here's a question for you, Wolf.
Yep.
Did you pass N2 before you went to school in Japan? So we're talking about Japanese.
Yes,
Japanese
the Japanese language proficiency test.
JLPT. Yeah. N2.
Before I went to school in Japan?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, I did not pass it. I went to Japan without having passed any tests. So I didn't take any tests before I came to Japan, but I had taken the JLPT2 before I went to the school.
Okay.
I'm not sure. How did I answer that? I may have misunderstood this question when I answered it in the comments, but
no, I think you may have answered someone else's.
Oh, okay, yeah. Because I think someone else asked if I had learned Japanese before coming to Japan, or if I had taken the test before coming to Japan. And no, I did not take it before coming to Japan, but after coming to Japan, I did take it. Yes. Yeah,
no, I think there may be two different comments. Someone who said before Japan, and another person who said before school.
Oh, okay.
And I think before Japan, no, but then before the school, yes.
Yes.
And me too. I mean, I haven't gone to a school, but I've got a job, and I certainly had to have N2.
Oh, and just for the school thing, I didn't necessarily have to have it. They had their own test they made me take.
So N2 or school test.
Yep.
Yes, that I can imagine that as well. Like, as long as you're the same as the N2 level, right?
Yep.
Okay.
And that could vary from school to school.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yep.
Well, thanks a lot.
Alrighty.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm kind of addicted. This what's the site that you use again? I'll just write it down.
Posemaniacs.com.
So just make a new canvas here.
And I'm going to have to check out your site as well.
Posemaniacs.com. And the one that I just used is, I'll just write it again, just in case. Reference.sketchdaily.net. Once you start doing these gesture drawings and practices, you get super addicted.
Yeah.
And what's really great is that it's not like you're stealing pose ideas. There are a limited number of contortions that the body can do.
Yep. Unless you have like photographic drawing, even if you're drawing a pose that they have there, your drawing is going to be different.
Yeah, it's going to be different. And also, you've got to just familiarize yourself with what the body is capable of.
Yep.
Like, again, when you're drawing these beans, you'll soon start to realize that beans like this don't exist.
Right? Yeah.
Unless they've, like, pulled out a rib or something.
Yeah.
Maybe if you're drawing a dead person.
Yeah, maybe.
A collapsed doll on the floor.
Yeah.
Which could be, you might have, like, a sci-fi epic where no one has bones anymore.
Right, you could be making some characters that are like little dwarf characters or something.
Right,
or
absolutely,
you never know. But yeah, basically that's like going back to the whole thing about the manga style of body or whatnot. Any kind of like fantasy character or any type of like cartoon character you see, they're all based on the real thing. So once you know the real thing, then you'll be able to exaggerate it or squish it or do whatever you want with it to make any type of character you like.
That's great advice. I think a lot of people think, especially because I thought this when I was a kid, I thought anime is easier than normal drawing. In fact, I think that I may have got into it because I thought, I don't want to learn figure drawing. I want to learn anime. It looks more fun and easier.
You're right.
And I was so wrong. In fact, there is so much anime and manga which is so much more realistic body proportion-wise than what I've seen in the West, that
it may be easier to like copy, to like just copy a drawing that you see, but to be the first person to make that drawing, like to have the understanding of what lines you can put there and what lines you don't have to put there, you know, and to know how to simplify all of that knowledge of the real forms and make it into something simpler. Like that takes a lot of like skill and ability, I would imagine.
Absolutely. Great. Well, let's end it there. I don't know when the next podcast will be, but it won't be too long, I don't think.
Nope, don't think so.
See you guys all in the future. Don't forget our Twitter handles if you want to add us, are NihongoGamer and Yazuki Wolf. I'll write it here. NihongoGamer and Yazuki Wolf.
If you want my news in English, probably want to subscribe to my Facebook. My Twitter is exclusively Japanese. But.
So easier for Yazuki Wolf to check out his Facebook.
Yeah.
And I'm probably much easier on Twitter because I have a Nihongo Gamer Facebook page, but as anyone who's subscribed to it knows, it hasn't been updated for about 2 years.
It happens.
So I'm the opposite. Great. Well, let's end it there.
All right.
See you next time.
See you next time.
Hello and welcome to Ultimate Comparison iPad Pro. Today we're going to be looking at the iPad Pro 9.7-inch device and comparing it with the 12.9-inch device with a particular focus on drawing. So essentially, if you want to draw a full-body character on the iPad Pro 9.7 in landscape, it is possible. I just did find that I was zooming in a little bit more often. People weren't always staring over my shoulder like, oh, that guy's using an Apple Pencil on an iPad. I think really people just kind of left me to do my own thing. It's just the way with art, isn't it? When you're practicing and you're not 100% sure that it's something that you're going to publish, you don't really want people to stare at it until you've actually published it. We can't just have a device that draws. We gotta have a device that draws and also does our homework and also watches YouTube videos and also sends emails and all of those hundreds of other things.